Krystel, great to see you. Welcome to Pop Alternative.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. All 15 episodes are finally out streaming on Max now for the Pitt, which is
Yep.
crazy. Felt like now we can talk about everything we need to talk about. You know what I mean? We just have to
Yeah.
put that little spoiler icon. No, I was excited when I confirmed this interview with you because, there's so many characters in this show. And it is an emergency room in the Pitt, and it's a 15-hour shift. So we meet a lot of doctors. We meet a lot of orderlies. We meet a lot of security guards. We don't meet that many social workers, and your character is a social worker. So I was wondering, what was that like for you, kind of getting the breakdowns for the characters, knowing that like did it felt unique a little bit? Because there's a lot of doctors, a lot of surgeons, right, and nurses, but you're like one of the only social workers there.
Yeah. I think it was really when I initially got it, that this isn't the first time I've been called to audition for a social worker, but I've never been called to play a social worker in a hospital setting.
Okay.
Usually when you see a social worker on TV, it's like something with child protective services is involved. And so when I saw it was in a hospital setting, I got really excited about that because that was something I was familiar with. And it was a side of social work that I just knew we don't get to see a lot. And I was grateful that it wasn't a nurse or a doctor or someone that I would have to be saying like these really complicated words with. Like I was like, oh, memorization should be good here.
Yeah. And take me through also that like script to screen journey with some of those really difficult scenes for us to watch. I can't even imagine kind of getting the scripts for them because your character has to be there right after people are given really horrible, news about their families, right? And your character is like one of the first people that they have to kind of interact with after that news. So what was that like reading those scenes and then seeing it come to life on screen, so to speak?
I think initially it kind of started off smooth. It was funny. Well, I shouldn't say smooth because it was the kid with the gummies.
Yes.
I think that was like the first one. Oh, no, actually David was the first one.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times when I would get those scripts reading it, my first question would be like, what would a social worker actually do in this situation and how much power do they have? I usually just had like a bunch of questions about like what it is that how much of a bind are we really in? Because then that informed like what I was going to do or how I would respond in those situations. I think with the gummy kid, that was a mom who was really angry. And I remember getting that scene and and I was like, there's this way that Krystel would react if somebody, cursed her out. And then there's a way that Kiara would react. And I think I tried to, what I actually did was I asked what social workers I knew. I was like, in this situation, is it like, are we focused on de-escalating right now? And so then I thought about like what my body language in that moment would be, how, try to make sure that I wasn't like patronizing, but at the same time, hearing her and, I don't know, responding in those moments. And then, the worst one for me, the most difficult was the drowning victim, the pediatric drowning.
Yes.
That one was really difficult because it was something that I had experienced in my own life. And so when I got that script, I think that just took me out. I was like, I didn't know if I would be able to finish through just even reading it. And I think I talked to my therapist about it, and then I just decided that the best thing to do in that moment was to be what I wanted my family to have in that moment through Kiara. And so that allowed me to really separate Krystel from Kiara in that moment.
Absolutely. So well said. There's going to be, certain scenes or certain, days on set that are going to be different than others, you know what I mean, depending on what your character is doing. What can you say about the overall pace for you specifically and your character filming the Pit? Because there's a lot of people when the surgeries, everyone's rushing in and the pace would be different. What would you say about yours? Like, was yours a little bit different, like at times, or did you feel like you were also like thrown in as well?
Yeah, no, I don't think for Kiara, every time I felt like every time I showed up, I was the pace was slowing down. It was
Yeah.
going to be things were going to be a bit slowed down whenever I showed up. I think that was just like the kind of the energy that I don't know if it was just the energy that I carried with me into the scene, but it was also what those scenes kind of, or what the episode called for.
Yeah.
Because it was like usually it would be just chaos, and then Kiara, and the scene is going to be a little quieter or slowed down in pacing. So I didn't have to deal with like too much of the fast paced like procedure stuff that was happening, but
Yep.
it was still faster than what I was used to.
Yes.
Even with my stuff being slowed down. I think I remember the first day coming, the first day reading the lines, and when we did like the little like rehearsal, and I was like, oh, I gotta keep up. Like, I hear what the pace is, because you never know until the first day you get there. But yeah, I remember thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna have to keep up with this, or just and really listen to what was happening around.
And I'm really excited to ask you this, because I started this interview talking about the fact that like you're one of the only social workers at the hospital, and there's a lot of surgeons, there's a lot of nurses, there's a lot of doctors, and Noah Wyle, Dr. Robby, he will have conversations with certain doctors, certain nurses, certain surgeons that are like different but like similar naturally, because he's talking to like one surgeon, then another surgeon, or one doctor, another doctor. With you, he's talking to a social worker, because I feel like the conversations that you would have would be different than the ones that Patrick Bob plays Dr. Langdon would have with Dr. Robby. So I was just wondering, what was that like for you specifically, working with Noah Wyle in regards to that?
It was really cool. I mean, working with Noah, it felt like, especially well, the Kiara Robby relationship felt a little more like we're coworkers. Like, he was usually consulting with me
Yes.
about something, and so that's different, because I wasn't necessarily ever like looking to Robby for advice about something. He was usually
Yeah.
coming to Kiara about what the next steps of something might be, or to just bounce an idea. And so I think immediately, just from the first episode, I realized like, oh, it gave me a better idea of what our relationship
Yes.
was probably going to be like. And then working with Noah, it felt it was great, because I mean, he's Noah, and like, and I think I was it just felt like, it's funny, it felt just like an honor to be
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a peer of yours. Like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Absolutely. And then last question before we wrap up as well. I know that, the episodes rolled out on Max, and the finale recently dropped, but I know that, they were filming episodes pretty recent. Like, when I was doing some interviews with some of your colleagues, they were also filming as well, right? So so I wanted to know about your kind of filming schedule. Like, when did you wrap specifically, and like what were those kind of days like specifically for you?
My days were pretty they were pretty smooth. Like, I would I mean, I would usually, I'm in Chicago, and so then I would like go out to LA, and we would film like the first 4 episodes. I was in the first 4 episodes, and so we would film that. That would take like a month and a half, and
Yep.
my days, I would probably do 3 to 4 days
Okay.
out of the week on set.
So you did
And
like a month and a half on set?
for the first block of episodes, and
Yes.
then I came back for another month and a half, and then I wrapped for episode 15. Even though my scene is cut from episode 15, but I was grateful to be able to be there to say bye to everybody. But yeah,
Okay.
it was pretty much a July through February.
Is it weird though that you like wrap the show on February and then the last episode comes out like in April? Like, that's a little Not weird, but it's crazy, right?
It really is, because I was so confused about that. I was like, wait, the show's gonna air while we're doing it. Everything I've ever filmed before usually comes out honestly like a year to 2 years after it's filmed. I'm usually telling people like, usually my family calls me and tells me that they've seen me on something because I forgot about it by the time it comes out.
Absolutely. No, I feel like that's the name of the game. Absolutely. But all the episodes of The Pitt are streaming now on Max, so you can check that out. Krystel, so great chatting with you. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. It was good being here. Thank you.
No problem. Is your Instagram, do you have an Instagram account if people want to keep up to date with everything?
I do. I don't know my name. What's my? I'm gonna tell you real
I think
quick.
they put Krystel Mcneil. I think they'll find it, but
If you put Krystel Mcneil, you find it. I think I'm Mommy Luther King. I think I'm at Mommy Luther King. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turn Interview.com/Pop Turn for previous episodes. So next time, this is Krystel Mcneil and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.